Welcome to Flying Upstream, the podcast where we uncover the choices, practices, and wisdom that defy mainstream conventions. I'm Kristen.
And I'm Louisa, and together we're here to illuminate the alternative paths that have shaped human experiences through the ages. In each episode, we'll examine ways to move beyond societal norms. We're passionate about how timeless wisdom and unique lifestyle choices can foster healthier, sustainable, and enriching lives.
Join us as we navigate, challenge, and celebrate the beauty and insight of walking the road less traveled. If you've ever felt like you're flying north for the winter while everyone else is flying south, you've found your flock. Welcome, free spirits. You're tuned into Flying Upstream, the live podcast where we dive into the stories of those who live differently. We're your hosts, Kristen Medeiros and Louisa Anderson, and today we're set to explore another incredible journey. Whether you're a regular listener or joining us for the first time, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe for us, please. And most importantly, get ready to challenge the status quo and be inspired. So without further ado, let's get flying.
That's right, folks. Today we have the luxury of having a special guest with us, and her name is Sue Ellen. And Sue Ellen is a master's prepared registered nurse. She has over 30 years of experience in psychiatric mental health, community, and family nursing, including service in the U.S. Navy and esteemed medical centers. She's a certified dream builder coach and life mastery consultant. Passionate about guiding individuals toward healthier and purposeful lives. She specializes in positive intelligence and coaching and a variety of holistic approaches. Sue Ellen empowers individuals and families, particularly parents, to overcome stress and anxiety, fostering greater joy and harmony in family life. Sue Ellen, welcome to the Flying Upstream podcast.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that lovely introduction and for inviting me. I'm happy to be here.
All right, Sue Ellen, let's jump into this. So tell us a bit about the story that changed your whole life.
The story that changed my whole life. I was raised very traditional. I grew up very traditional. I value and appreciate all my upbringing and my training and my education and my mentors. I married. I had 6 children, and we lived a very lovely life. We created a lovely life for our children. We moved around a lot. It was stressful. It was chaotic, as you can imagine. And I did find after 25 years of marriage that I had disconnected with myself and who I am by continually focusing on meeting the needs of my family, which is a natural thing. I'm not beating myself up over it. It was just like, okay, I'm in this boat and it's going really fast and it's going faster and faster and faster. And then it felt like it just stopped at a certain point. There was more chaos than expected in the last move we made. And it just felt to me like the water just swamped the boat. I noticed that I was disconnected with my husband. We were going through marital conflict, and it led to a divorce. And it was a shock being traditional and really going with the flow in those regards. And I found myself really asking myself, who am I? After really feeling like I lost the roles of wife and mother. My children were alienated from me. They were teenagers and young adults. And I was cut off from family finances. It was just really a really, really rough time. So it was, now that I look back, an opportunity to recreate myself. So I did.
And it sounds like it wasn't an easy journey, right? When we experience those moments where we realize that our home within ourselves has been let go and we don't have a definition for what that is. When you went through that, what 3 things did you do that made you make a shift back into yourself?
It was critical. Actually, my lawyer said, because I was really depressed, crying, not knowing what to do, trying to find work, which I did. He said you could stay curled up in a ball, or you can take care of yourself so that when your children come back to you, they have somebody to come back to. So it was a defining moment. I say that's the first step, is really recognizing that I had to do something, and then deciding what that something was going to be so I could shift my focus, shifting my focus from what was happening in my life. So maybe that was shifting my focus from external to internal, really asking myself how I wanted to live my life, finding help. I had been connected with a therapist and found help, but really connecting with my supports. And then there was just a rebuilding process of rebuilding my life in a way that was congruent with who I am and my own values, after being able to check in with that a little bit.
That's amazing.
That, yeah, absolutely. I was just going to add, Louisa and I are both mothers too. And I love that comment that you made about rebuilding yourself so your children have someone to come back to. That really resonates with me. I totally feel that how easy it is to let yourself go because you're a mother, you're a wife, and also you're just a human that has other needs. And it's so easy to put yourself to the side. But I love that comment of making sure you still are who you are for yourself and for the people that you love too. And setting that example not only as a role model, but ensuring that you have that sense of self and happiness for the rest of your life too. Yeah, I love that.
I know you said that, because the truth is, and I've learned this in working with other children and families as well, children really need you, and they need the best you that you can give them. So they're really not as healthy if you're putting all your focus on them. It's pretty stressful for children, actually. Really important, yeah, to stay self-connected. And that's why I'm in the work I'm in, because I really want to help mothers and fathers understand what that means. We're evolving all the time. We're changing all the time. And when we get stuck in roles, we're not really as open to that as we could be.
You probably find this a lot too, that people have these limiting beliefs because you grew up in a certain way with certain social norms and such, and it's hard to get past that. And I'm curious what that was for you. What was your limiting belief that you had to change in order for you to transform your life in a new direction?
That could be a long conversation about limiting beliefs. We live in a culture, that sets up our expectations and maybe what we should be or what we should do. So we have all that. We have our families that form these belief systems, and we have our own internal obstacles. And the work that I'm doing now in positive intelligence coaching has defined 9 of these mindset obstacles. And there's an assessment that you can take to see which type of mental obstacles limit you from growing and being the best person that you are. In my assessment, I was a pleaser, right? Or I am a pleaser, I should say. I'm working on it. We're always in work in progress. Pleaser and an avoider and a restless are my 3 top sabotaging mindsets. And I fell into those quite well. And I've also learned that when we're with a partner, they have their own set, and then our mindset obstacles interfere with each other. So we grow apart. We fall into patterns that are not as functional as they could be. So the shift was the divorce, honestly, really forcing me to take a good look at what happened. How did I get into this situation, and how did we grow so far apart? So oftentimes, if you're not my belief is if you're not doing your work on yourself for your own personal growth, we are, as human beings, we're designed for growth. And we're not growing, we're stuck. Something is going to happen in our lives that'll shake us up. And it's typically not pleasant to shake us into evolving.
Yeah. What do you believe is the main lesson that you've learned out of all of this, right? Out of having to look at yourself and out of the work that you do and your clients, your experience?
The one thing I would say is that every person has within them the answers to get through their life. And we're given this curriculum. One of my mentors, Mary Morrissey, talks about the curriculum of your life is the content of your evolution. And I love that because we're given this life, we create this life, and then we're in this situation that we've co-created with the divine, with God. We're co-creators. Okay, so that's one piece of it, but that we have agency. We have a lot of choice in how we create that life. So we don't have to stay stuck. We don't have to get into shame and blame of ourselves or others or the circumstance for what has happened to us. But really, that is a huge lesson that I have learned, is to take responsibility for the life that I've created. And it's really hopeful in knowing that I do have choice in how I respond to whatever is happening in my life. I probably said more than one thing, didn't I, Louisa?
I loved it all. I loved it all. And it is. I too went through a divorce, and my shakeup occurred at the same time, like yours, where I was forced to look at myself. I didn't have a choice but to look at myself, kind of assess how I got here. And I think, to your point about it being more than one, I think that it's so hard to say that it's one thing, because in my experience, as it sounds like it has been in yours too, it was quite a shift. Like everything shifted.
Right. The big life lessons, we can get them every day, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I love that you've been touching on, Sue Ellen. A lot of what naturally happens is life is just stress and anxiety. And it could be something simple from, like my morning, it took forever for my kids to get dressed, eat breakfast, get out the door. And I'm like, you're going to be late. Just the everyday stresses to something way more on the other side of the range of a divorce, which is so significant, life-changing. And being able to overcome these stresses and anxiety, a lot of us are not given those tools in our childhoods. And no fault of our families, they didn't know either. But now we're adults, we're in these stressful situations with our children or just life in general. A lot of people just don't really know what to do. And I'm curious what advice you might have for people, particularly parents, to help overcome some of this, to help find some more joy and harmony in family life.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Ooh, I love that question because that's what I would love to help people do. First of all, children are a gift, and to remember that always, and to be curious. I always talk to my clients about being curious about who they are versus assuming focusing on the child versus their behaviors, understanding that behaviors are a clue, a cue for parents to understand what their child needs. And parenting is an opportunity. It's the best opportunity ever for personal growth. That role challenges you more than, at least in my experience, and I've heard a lot of people say that, than any other job or role that you can have. Parenting is going to challenge you. And to see that as an opportunity. It's an opportunity to grow. They're little mirrors for you. You're going to see yourself in them. And that stuff is going to really be challenging. When you see the stuff that you don't like in yourself and your children, that's what really is like, okay, now it's time to take a look at what I can shift here.
Yeah, that's so interesting about parenting. I completely agree with you because there is nothing like watching your children behave the way they behave. And it really forces you every time. If I'm looking around and I'm like, well, I'm the parent and they're modeling after someone, and it's like, I guess that's me. So it really makes you question yourself, dig deep. And with children, that happens every day. Like Kristen
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, just getting out of the house can be a whole lot of lessons in
Mm-hmm.
one day. I have two kids and they have a big age gap. I have a 17-year-old son and an 8-year-old daughter. And with the big age gap, if you were working with parents in my situation, what advice would you have for them to help them achieve that harmony and overcome the stress that comes from maybe having kids with such an age gap? Because I feel like that alone can be very stressful in a family and cause a lot of disharmony. For example, my teenager drives and has his own life, and my 8-year-old, she just wants to hop in his back seat and just go with him. But that causes a lot of stresses in marriages and in relationships and in the household. What would you say to someone? How could you help them achieve like that harmony or peace that needs to happen for a household to run
Yeah.
nicely?
What you're speaking to is development. Where is this child in their development? And each stage of development requires different parenting, different kinds of parenting. So I would recommend to parents to go to some resources. I've got some really great resources to really understand what a child at this stage needs. Because they're going to be telling you all kinds of things about what they want. And they have different personalities. Some might be really strong willed and really testing the boundaries. They always test the boundary at some point. For example, your 8-year-old wanting to do what the 17-year-old is doing. So, yeah, that presents a certain challenge and a real opportunity to help them stay where they need to be developmentally. Giving them that kind of structure or guidance or teaching, you're their greatest teachers, to understand. Ask her, her questions. What is she feeling when he gets in the car and she can't go? Everything's an opportunity to connect with them. And that's what they really need. They need that connection, that learning, that understanding. They don't understand. They just simply don't understand the differences sometimes. Does that answer your question?
It does beautifully because
Yeah.
it gives me a starting point and it gives me a place to position each one of them individually, which can be hard when you're just managing day to day and you're like, you both go do this, or you no, you can't do that and you can't do that without an explanation. But I think that is part of it for them.
Right. And for the 17-year-old, you can help him learn how to communicate with his little sister about that, giving her some empathy, understanding. Yeah, I know how you'd really like to come with me. I like to spend time with you, whatever it is. Finding some narratives, finding some ways for them to connect versus getting competitive or adversarial about certain differences in what they're allowed to do. Because it
I
is
love
about connection. It's about connection in the families. The family is the place where they really need to find safety and belonging and connection.
Thank you so much. That's very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I,
I
yeah,
wish I would have done all this better, honestly. Like, nobody does it perfectly. You can talk to my children, they're grown now, and they can tell me all kinds of things that I could
yes.
have done better, but it's a process. It's a learning process. And that's what I hope people can take from listening to this is that you're never going to do it perfectly. You are unique. The name of your podcast is amazing, Flying Upstream, like going against the flow you mentioned. But what kind of flow is there really? A family is a group of individuals who are all different. And each family is different from every other family. So there really is no template. You get to go against the flow all the time. because you're creating your own flow.
That's such a beautiful reminder too. It's so easy, I know for myself, to get caught up in this is the way my daughter's friend does it and she wants to do it that way and all the things that come along with that. For example, today's Friday at my daughter's school. She's in first grade. The eighth graders sell popsicles every Friday to raise money for their eighth grade field trip, which I certainly want to support. I don't like her eating popsicles and sugar and all this garbage.
Yeah.
But it's really hard for her because she wants to do what all her friends are doing, so we get stuck in that situation there. But what I really appreciate about you, Sue Ellen, is that I can feel your passion for this topic and that you're invested, not just because you care about it, but I can tell that you've lived a life, that you've had some experiences and such that you so want to do good out in the world and help families and parents and children. And I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about what really motivates you. What is it that you think every morning when you get up, you're like, I am going to do this because I want to? What is that like for you?
There's both personal reasons. Doing this work with a flexible schedule and flexibility in my life allows me to spend time with my 6 children and 11 grandchildren. So there's that versus being in a traditional nursing schedule. So that's a piece of it. But also I'm passionate about doing things differently than the mental health system does. I was a school nurse. I gave a lot of Ritalin and medications to children with behavioral problems. I always wondered if that was the best solution. Sometimes, and I learned, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. And I do believe the mindset is, and has been, I do believe we're in a shift, that somebody else is going to fix whatever's going on the outside, that a professional is going to fix it, or there's a pill that's going to fix it. I've worked in inpatient psychiatric hospitals. This is a huge motivation, so I'm getting into it. Children that have been really neglected by their families, even by our systems. Their needs are not met, and they are obviously very dysfunctional in how they behave. They're identified as the problem. I mean, they were born into this world for a purpose, for a reason. They're beautiful souls. They don't know that. They don't see that. They only believe that they don't matter to anybody. They've been rejected by their family. There's something desperately wrong with them. They believe that. And it doesn't help them to be that beautiful person that they were designed to be. So I would rather be helping people be more proactive in understanding children's needs and how closely it's related to parents' needs.
Ooh.
When parents don't have their needs met, when parents are in chaos and crisis, they're not able to parent a child. They need support. So it's multifaceted. I'd rather be on a proactive position of helping people come from their strengths, understand that this child was given to them, even if they're in Section 8 housing and not able to keep a job for some reason, that this child is designed to be their child. And they have what it takes to be that child's parent, no matter what their circumstances are. So that's on the extreme level I've worked with in community health into homes where people are really, really struggling. And I just see the love that parents have for this child and how much they're struggling and how they really feel inadequate. Whereas it really can be simple. It really can be simple. Children's needs can be really simple. So I can give you a lecture on that from school nurse perspective too. I mean, you were talking about giving popsicle to your daughter, Kristen. Like, I was in an inner city school. This girl kept coming in with stomach aches in the morning. I'd ask her what she had for breakfast. Well, her mom had to get her out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning so she could drop the sibling off at daycare. And then she would like blue juice and a sticky bun and a paper in the car. It's not helpful to blame the parents. It just really is not. I mean, it's leading to this child not getting a good education because she's got a stomach ache. Her brain doesn't have food. I'm getting into really deep layers of stuff, right? But that's motivating to me. It's motivating to me to help parents understand that it doesn't have to be that difficult. The child is not the problem. The child is a human being with needs, just like everyone else.
I love that you got that deep. I do, because I think that it's often very conceptual to people who have not experienced that, to people who weren't school nurses, to people who haven't lived in inner cities and understand what that looks like. You really just gave a very clear picture of what happens in everyday life for some people. And I think that, like you mentioned it beautifully, the impact that has is not seen, right? That could have been a conversation just about the diet. It's like, oh no, your mom needs to feed you better. That could have ended there, but it never ends there. There's more that goes with that, and that's what you shared. It impacts her education. Now, that impacts the outcome of that family's finances, that impacts the career she's able to pursue. Does she want to go to college? Is she going to have the confidence to feel like she can perform in college? And I love that you got that deep, because we don't get to hear that enough, to be able to understand these big picture concepts that we can talk about on a day-to-day on podcasts like ours. And I also think that, it does a great job in showing the level to which you get in the work that you do, which you mentioned. The problem is not the child, and not that the problem is the parent, but there needs to be a solution that encompasses both. But it starts with the parent a lot of times, because if the parent is not well, as I experienced myself, when I became happier, my children are completely different kids, absolutely different, happy, joyful individuals, which they were not before. And it really just goes to show, in my opinion, the power of the work that you do and the passion with which you do it. I feel like we've got a pretty good sense of it. But what is your mission? What is your mission with the work that you do every day, and the families that you help, and the lives that you essentially transform every day?
Really to help families be healthier, all around healthier, holistically healthier, body, mind, and spirit, relationally, so they can thrive. I believe that there are solutions. I mean, I'd love to bring hope and joy and peace to the world in a global sense, but it starts with the family. And I hope you're hearing too, it really starts with me. I can do something about this. And what I can do what I need to do for my own personal growth to be the best person I can be. It has to start there. It has to start there. For people to take personal responsibility for their own health and growth. And exactly what you're saying, Louisa. My first baby, right when you're having a bad day, you just want to cuddle them and have them be happy. No, if you're having a bad day and you're stressed, we're energy. We're all about energy. They feel our energy. That's when they're crying, they don't sleep. I'm like, this is not fair. Have you felt that? And I've heard it so many times with parents, as if the child is going to meet their needs. The child is not going to meet your emotional needs. You're even in trouble if you expect your partner to meet your emotional needs, but that's another subject.
Yeah.
Sue Ellen, you have given us so much to think about today. Thank you. And the last and most important question we're going to ask you is, what was the exact moment that you decided to fly upstream?
I don't know that there's an exact moment. When I was a parent, I'll go back to that first moment where it really was apparent to me that conventional parenting wasn't going to work for us. And my husband was completely on board with this. our children were in sports. There's pressures, to be in sports all the time. It would have taken up our entire life with all those children. And we said no to a lot of it, and just said we prioritize family time. So that was a really significant time in my life where I can say we chose to fly upstream. We had this T-shirt that said "Go against the flow," and there's all the fish going the one way and then one going the other way. In relation to Christianity, which is also a framework that I've lived by, is that no, you don't just do what everybody else does just because everybody else is doing that. It's more than that. It's being the best version of yourself and deciding for yourself based on your own values and based on your own understanding of who you are and what you want to bring to the world.
Thank you so much for everything that you've shared today. I really hope that our listeners got out of this as much as I, and it looks like Kristen also did.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, this has been so amazing for our listeners. We are going to link all of Sue Ellen's information in the show notes and in the description if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're not already following us, definitely do follow us, share, like, and don't forget that if you desire to work with Sue Ellen to create your own dream life using the secrets, knowledge, and experience in her toolbox, we hope that you reach out to her. You find all the information in the show notes, and most certainly, don't forget to remember every day that it is your choice to fly upstream. Until next time.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, free spirits, that's all the time we have for today on Flying Upstream.
We hope this episode sparked your curiosity and ignited a desire to explore the extraordinary paths less traveled.
Even when the current feels strong, a whole world of possibilities awaits.
We'll see you next time on the other side of mainstream.
So keep questioning, keep challenging, and most importantly, keep flying upstream.